Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. I'm going with a slightly different setup here, having the camera up a little bit. Not sure that I'm going to continue rolling with this, but we shall see. Just want to change things up a little bit. This, of course, is the weekly installment of a game preview this week. It is Iowa versus USC. This game is going to be on the road in LA at the Coliseum, I believe it is. Um, this would be a game, quite frankly, had Iowa defeated Oregon, that I would have considered going to, as it's a historic venue. Uh, One of the perks to these West Coast teams joining the Big Ten, of course, is there's more Iowa fans around the country that are able to enjoy and see the Iowa Hawkeyes playing live. But nonetheless, the Iowa Hawkeyes are coming into this game, or will be coming into this game, suffering a brutal, heartbreaking, basically last second loss, close to it, last second loss at the hands of another West Coast, formerly Pac-12 school in the Oregon Ducks. Were they? Was it ever the Pac-16? I don't think so. Pac-12 used to be the Pac-10, and when I say brutal, I absolutely mean that. If you're a USC fan watching this, I mean it could not have been more of a gut wrenching defeat than that. I mean, there's plenty of fans that would rather their favorite team lose in a butt whooping fashion by just getting beat down in every which way than lose in this manner. I got to tell you guys, I do absolutely understand that perspective. I think in the end, I don't agree with that. Uh, how you lose definitely does matter, and it says a lot about your team. By the way, if you're a USC fan, I've noticed this when it comes to Iowa playing teams like Oregon or the Penn States of the world, or some of the bigger programs. They always comment, your analysis is extremely biased. Well, number one, obviously, I am a University of Iowa fan. Okay, this is not a game preview that you would watch with CBS Sports or something like that, which, by the way, probably would be biased as well in their focus on the bigger market teams. But my analysis is towards the end. I give my overview of the Iowa Hawkeyes at the beginning. Occasionally, both programs coming into this game. Then I review the team stats, individual stats, and then I give my analysis at the end and my game prediction. Like, it's not, the whole time Iowa Hawkeye focus. But I digress. Just in case, I'm going to just get that out of the way right at the beginning. I used to do that a lot last year. And then this year, I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I don't need to say that. But I'm gonna go back to doing so in this video, just to have full disclosure. Spoilers ahead. This is an Iowa Hawkeye fan perspective. So it's going to be interesting to see where Iowa's headspace is at coming into this game. Um, not only that, not only do they have to wrap their minds around basically losing their ability to compete for the college football playoff, but they also now have to travel across the country and play a top 25 caliber team in the USC Trojans, as if things were not difficult enough. There's still a lot to be played for if you're an Iowa Hawkeye fan and player. Iowa, of course, can still finish 9-3, which would be really strong when you consider the schedule this year is probably one of the more difficult schedules that Iowa has played this year, with ranked games against Iowa State, Oregon, Indiana, and now USC. Obviously, Iowa State's not still ranked, but they're not a terrible team. I think they are 6-4 at this point in time after defeating TCU this past weekend. So that's probably the number one story. And not only that, but in my experience, when it comes to the University of Iowa, they usually struggle in their trips to the West Coast, which is a little bit different than their trips to the East Coast, I think. I think their trips to the East Coast, usually in both basketball and in football, have been pretty successful. I think the West Coast is a different thing entirely because maybe it has to do with the locale, going to the West Coast and what the West Coast represents, and maybe if the team has mostly Midwesterners and they're not used to being in a Western area or Western state, the mystique of it all, the shine of it all, going to Los Angeles, the city of angels or whatever it's called. Maybe that adds an element of distraction for these young men. Um, I'm not saying it does, but it might. And I wouldn't be surprised personally if that was the case. Is Iowa's entire roster filled with Midwestern players? No, but it is predominantly. And either way, they spend a majority of their time, if they, stick with the University of Iowa football program, in the Midwest, in the state of Iowa. So, that travel can add an added element. They're going to be playing in a historic stadium. And so it just historic, like in my lifetime, it just has not fared that well for them. They have not done really that well. I mean, if you guys remember the Rose Bowl against Stanford, they got absolutely shellacked. They lost to UCLA last year on the road. I mean, and it's basketball too. I mean, it just hasn't really been super successful. And I personally believe that the whatever encompasses traveling to the West Coast has something to do with it. Now, of course, um, there's not going to be a ton of time for Iowa to, kind of get sucked into the glitz and glam or whatever the preconceived notion of the West Coast. But it still might add just enough distraction on top of having to play a top 25 caliber team, on top of having to rebound off of a game that they absolutely could have won, maybe even should have won against sixth ranked Oregon Ducks. And then on the other side, on the flip side, Oregon is absolutely having a rebound year. I think Lincoln Riley is in the midst of rebounding this program and really starting to get some of the players that he really wants and has wanted, mostly during his time at USC. There may have been some change in the recent year or two in kind of his recruiting process and the type of players that he's recruiting and bringing to Southern California, but they are surging. This is a program to watch out for. They recruit extremely well. If you look at the 2026 recruiting class, I believe USC is top three, if not number one. Last I checked. This is a program that has the ability to get players. Lincoln Riley has proven that he can be an elite football coach. If not still being an elite football coach, as I'm sure there would be a lot of people who would argue that. USC always has speed, athleticism, talent on their roster. Now, the application of that roster and the discipline of that roster sometimes, varies from season to season, coach to coach. Iowa State, yes, is 6-4. I just looked it up, but so far this year, so good, and they're coming into this riding high. They're probably in the midst of their best upward trajectory in recent memory, and this would be a big statement victory for them. And this would be a game that they need to catapult them into the college football playoff, because college football playoff, we've heard the commentators and everybody, and if looking at the rankings, I think this indicates that as well. The Big Ten and SEC are looked at as the top two conferences in all of college football. And the Big Ten it's looking like there's going to be four teams that are able to make it into the college football playoff. Now, Iowa effectively, got rid of their chance and played their chances away from making the college football playoff, or played it down the tubes rather. Um, I do think that there's a outside chance that they could, if they absolutely dominated USC and they finished the final two games in dominating fashion, depending on how Oregon and Indiana finishes and Iowa State, there's a outside chance that they back their way into it. It's less than 5%. It's effectively over. Um, but looking at their initial ranking in the college football playoff, the committee does value this team pretty significantly in comparison to the AP poll and maybe how some media sources view uh, this Iowa football team. If you look at Lincoln Riley's time at USC, his first year, he went 11-3 with a loss in the Cotton Bowl. Finished in the top 15 in both AP and coaches. His second year, he went 8-5, which not terrible, but certainly not good enough for USC standards with the win in the Holiday. Then they went 7-6 with the win in the Las Vegas Bowl. They went 4-5 in conference. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about with him getting his players rebounding off of those two seasons in 2023, 2024, and kind of adapting to the Big Ten and maybe life at USC. There are some whispers of Lincoln Riley possibly being interested in the Penn State job. I don't personally, not that I pay attention to USC that much, even though am linked to the state of California, am really familiar with the state. I don't think that I have family that live there. I don't think that he will. I don't think Penn State has any more resources than what USC has, and quite frankly, there's things that USC has that Penn State does not have. The talent pool in the state of California, not that the state of Pennsylvania is terrible, but the talent pool in California is either the best or top three in all of the United States year in year out. Definitely top five. Um, and players want to play on the West Coast. I mean, California, while it has dropped back in some regards, industrially, economically, kind of the prestige of the state, it's lost some shine. It still is pretty highly regarded and a place where a lot of people want to go. So the only thing that I would say that Penn State has that maybe USC doesn't is fan participation. USC has fan participation, but it's really only when they are tops in the conference. Otherwise, or an elite football program. Otherwise, there's just too many other distractions in the state. There's too many other entertainment sources. And it's really easy for USC to lose their fan base attention and vie for it, and or need to vie for it rather. Whereas Penn State, whether they were 8-5 or 7-5 or whatever, 7-6, 6-7, 11-1, whatever, or 11-2. What is it? 10-3, so 13, 11-2. Yeah. Tons of fans would still be showing up. Penn State is a historic program as far as fan participation. Not that USC doesn't have a big fan base. I'm just saying on a game in, game out fan participation rate, it's hard to beat Penn State. but resources, all the other things, USC is as good as it gets. It is absolutely a prestige job, and some would argue that USC is quite possibly the best job in all of college football. Now, obviously, there's things that go into it, such as the AD, again, fan participation, and maybe some other smaller minutia. But by and large, I think year in year out, most people would consider it a top five job for any head coach. And also, USC, while there's high expectations, I don't think that on a yearly basis, because, and it's kind of a double-edged sword when I'm talking about with the fan participation, I don't think year in, year out, there's the same pressure that exists at a LSU or an Alabama or even a Florida or Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan. It's still high, don't get me wrong, but I don't think to that level. I think there's a little bit more grace and a little bit more room for um, development and lagged success. So, anyways, guys, without further ado, let's dive into this analysis. By the way, guys, if you're not already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment. You guys know the drill. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Subscribe, like the whole 9 yards to the channel. I appreciate all your guys' support as always. Much appreciated. Iowa comes into this game 6-3, overall 4-2 in conference. USC is 7-2, overall 5-1 in conference. USC is a 6.5 point favorite, which I think is accurate. I think, if looking at the spread, um, I'm sure Iowa's recent game against Oregon has something to do with this spread. And again, as I was alluding, USC has everything to play for still, whereas Iowa really they're playing for pride and finishing the year on a high note. Not that that's not nothing, but that is something when you look at the college football playoff. This was one of the drawbacks to only having a select handful of teams or kind of getting to that medium size where it's 12 16 teams is the teams that don't make it. It kind of makes you feel you kind of develop the sense of, well, does the season even really matter? The bowl games don't have the same ring or prestige to it. And then on the flip side, when it was only four teams, it was like it was so elite, the four teams that made it. It's like, well, who's elite? Only four teams. So it's okay that we're not it. As long as we're still good, great. It's fine. I mean, there's only four teams that make it. So, but when you're in that medium range, it's kind of hard. And so they're, the NCAA football is trying, and Big Ten, SEC, the big conferences, they're trying to create on a game to game to game basis more meaning and purpose behind each game in the coming years, which will be interesting to see. So I think 6.5 is correct. The ESPN Football Power Index or analytics gives USC a 76% chance to win this game. It's a little bit higher than I expected. I thought it would be, 65-35. But again, ESPN doesn't love Iowa in the stats. You look at the Big Ten Conference, Indiana first, Ohio State second, USC third, tied with Oregon third, and Michigan. They're all tied unless there's like a head-to-head that any of them have over one another in the USC, Oregon, Michigan spot. And then, of course, Iowa is next with the head-to-head over Minnesota. And then there's Nebraska at 4-3. Leading stat getters, Mayava. Hopefully, I didn't say his last name wrong. Jay Mayava, 17 touchdowns, 6 INTs. Pretty solid with 2,600 passing yards. That's really solid compared to Gronowski. I mean, only 1,084 passing yards, 5 touchdowns to 4 INTs. Kamari Moulton has 522 rush yards compared to 636 for K. Miller. Sam Phillips is the leading receiver at 216. M. Lemon has 937. Just to put that into perspective, Iowa's top three or four receivers combined probably don't have 937 yards, or it's very close. And on top of that, this guy has 7 touchdowns. That's just incredible. Sacks, Max Llewellyn has 6. He continues to be one of the top sack getters in the entire country. B. Shelby with 3.5. And then 56 tackles for Carson Scherer and 61 for Gentry or Gentry. Here are the last one, two, three, four, 5 games for each team. Iowa lost 18-16 at home to Oregon. They defeated Minnesota 41-3. They defeated Penn State 25-24. Both at home. They defeated Wisconsin on the road 37-0, and they lost to Indiana 20-15. So their combined losses in the Big Ten are by 7 points in total. That's another aspect to this game is the fact that Iowa has played 3 straight home matchups. Going on the road after playing at home three games in a row is also probably going to be difficult. Northwestern competed against USC a little bit better than I expected. Northwestern is a better team this year than most anticipated. Not me. I've said that this new coach for Northwestern is, he knows Northwestern football and is getting them in the right direction. But USC prevailed at home 38-17. They beat Nebraska on the road, which is never easy, 21-17. They defeated lost to Notre Dame by 10 at Notre Dame. They have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Michigan with a 31-13 victory, and they lost at Illinois 34-32. So, USC is not perfect. I mean, there's some chinks in the armor, okay? Giving up 34 points to Notre Dame, 17 points to Northwestern, 31 the victory over Michigan is very solid, 31-13, but giving up 34 points to Illinois, albeit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games ago. But still, I mean, coming from an Iowa perspective, there's something there. Again, if I had to guess, USC is a high flying offense with high powered athletes. Defensively, they have athletes, but there's some room there. This game is going to be 12:30 Pacific time. Looks like it's going to be beautiful weather, 68 degrees. So hopefully that's a stark contrast from the rainy, drudgery weather that was Iowa football or Iowa City this past weekend that really did nothing to Oregon. It really only affected Iowa, sadly, but still. So USC does have the 7th best scoring offense in the entire country. They're averaging 39 points a game. That's not what I pulled up here. But that is magnificent, averaging 39 points a game, 7th in the country. This is scoring defense. Iowa is 4th through 9 games, and they are giving up 13 points a game, which is elite. Touchdowns, they've only given up 12 compared to 10 field goals, which is pretty solid. That means when it gets in the red zone, Iowa is close to 50% of the time holding them to a field goal, so that's not bad. Let's see where USC is at. Got Nebraska up there, that is 27th. But yeah, I mean, USC high power offense averaging 39 points a game. Like I said, that's a stupid total right there. That is insane. Um, see if we can find their defense here. So, Southern California is 43rd. I missed them. They're giving up 21.78, so almost 22 points a game. So, like I said, I mean, that's not terrible. They're about an average defense in that regard. Maybe a little bit above average defensively, but certainly not elite, and certainly not where you know they probably want it, especially if you look at the athletes that they have. But still, here's the scoring offense seventh. You see Southern California 39.6, almost 40 points per game they're averaging. That is just unreal. Now that Oregon was averaging the same amount, and Iowa held them to 18. Um, would have been less if they hadn't gotten the last, almost last second field goal. I don't know where Iowa is at in scoring offense. I know their total offense is probably not the best. uh, but Iowa's scoring offense, 29.6, 61st in the entire country. Um, That's probably about average. I mean, how many teams are there in all of college football? 130. So if you're 61st, 134. So that's a little bit above average. I would like to see Iowa averaging 30 points a game, but I think, if you're looking at it from as fair a perspective as possible and looking at where Iowa was before Tim Lester, um, I think anywhere from 28 to 30 is good. Southern California is the second best total offense, averaging 503.2 yards per game. Again, Oregon, 471.6, and Indiana 487, and Iowa, held both of them to 20 and 18 points respectively. And again, in both those games, um, there was a lot that Iowa did to themselves to kind of hurt that total. It could have been even less, um, if Iowa was doing what it normally does in playing a clean football game. Now, obviously, there's a reason Indiana and Ohio State or excuse me, Indiana and Oregon are such good football teams, but still. So Iowa is 120th in total offense, averaging 309.1 yards per game. Now, most of that is their rushing attack. Um, so, take that as you will. All right. Here is my final analysis on this game. I wish I could be more optimistic. Well, let me start with being optimistic. Again, Iowa has a really solid team, top to bottom. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people in the amount of NFL draft picks that they have this year, and next year for that matter. This is probably one of the more talented teams that Iowa has had in recent memory. But to tell you the truth, I mean, that's not usually really the issue for Iowa. I mean, Iowa under Kirk Ferentz has always produced a decent amount of talent. Um, and again, this is going to go down as the season that could have been. I said in one of the videos that I posted recently that even if Iowa loses this game to USC and lose the one of the final two as well, it's still going to go down as the season that could have been because had Iowa won one of those two games against Oregon and Indiana, the outlook of the season is totally different. And it puts less pressure on this game. It would make this game even more important, and the vantage point would be different. Not that much different, but different. Because Kirk Ferentz in Iowa does a good job of getting their players ready, regardless. And then, of course, you look at the Iowa State game. Had Iowa won that game, now Iowa didn't know what they had. Mark Gronowski going back to that game fully like they do now, but still what he was and was not. So this, unfortunately or fortunately, this is going to go down as the season that could have been. And again, that means that this team does have talent. They have an elite defense. Their special teams is solid. Caden Weejan, it was a little quiet, and I fully expect USC to avoid him like the plague, as he's one of the best return men in the entire country. He's electric. But to tell you the truth, he actually was a little bit giddy against Oregon and had a fumble and almost had one more in one of the punt returns. I mean, he tried to field a play and then call a fair catch, but then didn't catch it, and then it almost hit him. So, that was worrisome. But by and large, Iowa is solid, and they're going to look at the film and hopefully make some improvements. I think again, it's the same thing. At this point, Iowa's pass game is mediocre, average. They did a little bit better against Oregon than I expected. I think there's more to be had in targeting the tight ends, based on what we saw against Oregon to move the chains, as Iowa has some athletes there. And, that was one of my slight critiques and concerns of Tim Lester, is that he would be going away from the tight end too much. I mean, the tight end, if you get athletes there, as Iowa does, can be an extremely valuable position in getting yards and being possession receivers and reliable targets, red zone targets. So hopefully that continues. But for Iowa to win this game, they're going to have to run the football, which I do think is possible. I think, if you look at the two teams or the three teams, Oregon, Indiana, and USC, Iowa stacks up against USC better. Statistically, talent wise, it's better. And there's a lot more to be had there against USC's defense than there was against Oregon's defense or Indiana's defense, because Oregon and Indiana both have good to elite defenses, especially Oregon. Um, Whereas USC, you guys just saw that's not necessarily the case. But Iowa is going to be fighting the fact that they're going to have to travel time zones, um, and coming off a brutal loss. And that's not going to be easy. That is going to be a very difficult thing to do. I think I would feel a little bit better about this game if it was at night and maybe Iowa had a little bit more time to navigate the time change. They're going to be going back 2 hours, so they when they leave, if they I believe what is it, if they leave at 3 o'clock Pacific time, when they get to Southern California, it's going to be 2 hours back. Not accounting for travel time, it'd be 1 o'clock. So, um, and I think that I don't know if that's more difficult or less difficult than going forward, but it presents a challenge. The key to this game is going to be Iowa. What type of Iowa shows up? Is it an Iowa team that is encumbered and you know uh, frothing at the mouth to avenge their loss to Oregon and salvage this season and show the entire country that they are a good, possibly even a great football team? Or is it a depleted team that starts slow and has to mount a comeback at the end? What type of team shows up? For USC, I think obviously they have playmakers. Their offense is solid, and because of the weather, unlike the Oregon game, there's going to be more. They're going to be in a better position to exploit Iowa's defense than Oregon did. But again, Iowa did well against Indiana, and the weather was solid. So, um, and defense tends to travel. So, in the end, it's going to come down to those things and which team does their thing better than the other. For Iowa, it's running the football, Gronowski making plays, here or there in the pass game, and running the football, and Iowa dominating defensively, maybe getting some turnovers, maybe some special teams action. For USC to win, they're going to have to play better defensively and really limit Iowa's run game. And they're going to have to do better against Iowa's defense than most teams have been able to do this year. If Iowa is able to score 20 points or more, I think they win this game, statistically. If they're not, they're going to lose. If USC on the other hand is able to score 25 or more points, they probably win. I'd probably even go less than that. If they're able to score, 22 or more, they probably win this game. Just because of what that means regarding the Iowa defense. And obviously, Iowa's offense tends to not do the best in those positions, but they are in better shape than they were under Brian Ferentz. So, with that said, uh, my game prediction, my heart tells me that Iowa rebounds and they're able to run the football and out physical USC. And I certainly logically think that that's possible. I do. My head tells me that USC is the pick in this game. Um, I think I am going to go with my heart in this one. And I think, unlike I usually do, I'm going to believe in Iowa that they can rebound and get their first top 25 victory on the road in multiple years. But make no mistake, this is me saying that this is my heart because the logic tells me that it's not going to happen and they're going to struggle on the road. And this might even end up being Iowa's worst loss of the year as far as point differential and whatnot. So I'm going to go Iowa wins this game. Let's go 22 to 17. And Iowa's defense shines. Iowa's offense is able to exploit USC's defense, and they're able to escape Southern California with a victory. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, share. You guys know the drill. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. In fact, our feelings because your feelings just matter. Love you, Hawk fans. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye bye.